Welcome back to the Sunday Reset. I'm AK Dozanti, first responder wellness coach and specialist. And this is your weekly wellness check-in where I cover things that you might be struggling with as a law enforcement officer or a first responder. So we're a couple of weeks in and you've had the awareness, but now what do we do about it? So I want to share with you the biggest game changer for me in my recovery from burning out of full-time law enforcement. It was accompanied by depression, adrenal fatigue, and PTS. And that's being able to understand how the body and the brain work under stress and within trauma, which is precisely what I teach at agencies, departments, and with my clients. So I've given you a little bit of background so far, and if you haven't caught those videos, go back and watch. But I want to dive a little deeper and explain how these things might be showing up for you in your life and what you can do about them. And in my research, many of the symptoms that law enforcement and first responders are experiencing, like overwhelm, disconnect, brain fog, a looming sense of urgency, but an inability to take action at the same time, trouble communicating or finding the words to even describe what you're experiencing, and a host of other symptoms, all have a common thread. And almost always they can be tied back to a dysregulated nervous system. So what's happening is that we live in a world and we work in environments that our default human systems are not built for. Our subconscious and our nervous system is constantly on surveillance to detect anything that could be perceived as a threat. Now, we know that when a threat is detected, whether it's real or just perceived, our body goes into a stress response and it releases hormones. Those hormones are designed to push us into action and prepare us for managing that threat, and they will save our lives. But many of our everyday functions of the body are disrupted in the process. Immune function, digestion, musculoskeletal system, it's all affected. And when you have prolonged exposure to those real or perceived threats, our system becomes primed and conditioned and stuck in these states, which gives you a new and an increased threshold for those hormones, like cortisol and adrenaline, and it creates more of a chronic condition, basically. And that's not to say that you can't manage it, but you have to actually manage it. You have to stay on top of it and be proactive. So many of these issues can be managed by balancing out the nervous system. This is not to say that we're curing things or making them magically disappear, but there's a lot of evidence to support that many of these symptoms can be controlled. Our initial reaction or response to a threat typically is fight or flight, but if neither of those options are available, our system can also go into freeze or fawn. So on the high end, being really activated might look like feeling really restless or edgy, overwhelmed, snappy, irritable, having irritable communication, easily frustrated, highly sensitive to different kinds of stimuli, large crowds, loud noises, trouble sleeping. And sometimes when we're on the low end, that freeze or fawn can present as feeling numb or spaced out, trouble with memory, unexplained inflammation, sense of doom. All of these things show up in our brain as well as our body and in our behaviors. And what I find for a lot of law enforcement and first responders is a combination. Typically that lower end or shutdown is on the outside, while we're more activated or on that higher end on the inside. But we have to be able to tap into our body, slow down long enough to recognize what it is that we're actually feeling so that we can know what step 2 is. So our nervous system craves balance, but our brain craves what's familiar. And we have to be able to listen to our body and give it the balance that it needs. So when it comes to the communication between our brain and our body, 80% of the communication is coming from our body up to our brain, and only 20% is from the brain down to the body. So if we're not listening to our body, we're cutting out 80% of that communication with our nervous system. And ways to listen to your body is simply to slow down. Get out of your head and into your body. Get present into the moment. Your nervous system is often pulling you into the past or the future. We have to get in the present. Validate what you're experiencing. It's likely normal for the circumstances that you're in. You're not broken, I promise. give more power to the things that you can control, and just try to recognize if maybe you're on the higher end or the lower end, and identify the things that provide you balance, the things that make you feel present in the moment. It's going to be different for everybody. The work doesn't stop here, because once you learn how to balance what you're experiencing in real time, then you have the ability to go back and dig deep and reconcile the past and greet the future in a new way. And I know this sounds like a lot, but anything worth having takes effort, and finding peace, especially in the first responder world, is priceless. So you can get more on these types of topics by subscribing to my email list at akdozanti.com. I hope you'll come back and reset with me next week. Be well and stay safe.